Your grocery store is lying to you. Not maliciously, but by omission. While you're dropping $5 on organic kale and 7 on fancy heirloom tomatoes, there are crops growing in backyards across Mexico that make your superfood smoothie look like a participation trophy. The Aztecs figured this out 600 years ago. We're still catching up. Here's the kicker. These aren't delicate, high-maintenance plants that require a PhD in horticulture. Most of them laugh at drought, shrug off pests, and grow in soil so poor you'd think twice about calling it dirt. The Aztecs built an empire on these crops. You can't even keep your basil alive for 2 weeks. So what happened? How did we end up with grocery stores full of crops that need constant babysitting, while plants that practically grow themselves got forgotten? Colonialism, mostly, and really bad marketing. Let's fix that. Number 8. Amaranth. The grain that refused to die. The Spanish conquistadors banned this plant. Literally outlawed it. That should tell you something. When your colonizers are so threatened by a crop that they make it illegal to grow, you're dealing with something powerful. Amaranth was one of the Aztec Empire's 3 staple crops, right alongside corn and beans. But unlike corn, which the Spanish decided was useful, amaranth had a problem. The Aztecs used it in religious ceremonies. They'd mix amaranth seeds with honey and human blood to create ritual figures of their gods, then break them apart and eat them in what they called a communion ceremony. The Spanish took one look at this and said, absolutely not. Too pagan. Too indigenous. Too much like their own communion rituals, which made them deeply uncomfortable, so they banned it. Growing amaranth became punishable by having your hands cut off. But here's the thing about amaranth. It doesn't care about your colonial policies. The plant kept growing in hidden gardens, remote mountain villages, and anywhere the Spanish weren't looking. It's having its comeback tour. Why? Because amaranth is basically a cheat code for nutrition. 1 cup of cooked amaranth grain contains 9 grams of protein. That's more than your quinoa. The protein is also complete, meaning it contains all 9 essential amino acids your body can't make on its own. The only grains that can claim this are amaranth and quinoa. And quinoa is amaranth's cousin. But wait, it gets better. Amaranth has twice the iron of wheat, 3 times the fiber, more calcium than milk, gram for gram. Lysine levels that make other grains jealous. The Aztecs weren't mixing this with honey because it tasted good, though it does. They were mixing it with honey because they'd figured out it was essentially a superfood 500 years before that term existed. Now here's where it gets interesting for anyone with a backyard. The Aztecs grew it between their corn and beans in a system called milpa. The amaranth would fill in the gaps, providing ground cover, adding nitrogen to the soil, and producing food that's stored for years. Try that with your arugula. The leaves are edible too. They taste like spinach had a baby with mustard greens. More vitamin C than oranges. More vitamin A than carrots. You can harvest the leaves continuously throughout the growing season, and the plant just keeps producing. Commercial agriculture hates amaranth for the same reasons home gardeners should love it. It doesn't need fertilizer. It doesn't need pesticides. It just grows. That's terrible for selling inputs. It's fantastic for your garden. Number 7. Chia. Not just for pottery pets. Remember chia pets? Those terracotta animals you'd smear with chia seeds and watch sprout into green fur? Turns out, we were growing one of the most nutrient-dense foods on the planet and using it as a novelty gift. Warriors would consume a spoonful before battle or long journeys, claiming it could sustain them for 24 hours. Yeah, actually, that checks out. 2 tablespoons of chia seeds contain 11 grams of fiber. That's about 40% of your daily recommended intake. They also pack 4 grams of protein, 9 grams of healthy fats, and more omega-3 fatty acids than salmon, gram for gram. Oh, and they're loaded with calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus. Your bones are interested, but the real magic happens when chia seeds hit water. They absorb up to 12 times their weight in liquid, forming a gel that slows down digestion and provides sustained energy release. The Aztec warriors weren't exaggerating. This is endurance food engineered by nature. Growing chia is almost suspiciously easy. The plant is part of the mint family, which should tell you something about its determination to survive. You can grow it in containers, garden beds, or pretty much anywhere that gets sun. It thrives in hardiness zones 9 to 11. But honestly, it's an annual that grows so fast you can cultivate it almost anywhere with a growing season longer than 90 days. The plants reach about 3 feet tall and produce beautiful purple flowers that bees absolutely lose their minds over. Then those flowers dry into seed heads packed with those tiny nutritional powerhouses. One plant produces enough seeds to keep you in chia pudding for months. Here's something your grocery store won't tell you. Those organic chia seeds you're buying for $15 a pound, they're probably from Paraguay or Argentina. Nothing wrong with that. But you could be growing them in your backyard for essentially free. In pots on rooftops. The Spanish actually tried to ban chia too, for the same reasons they banned amaranth. Religious significance and indigenous identity. Unlike amaranth, the ban on chia mostly worked. It was only rediscovered in the 1990s when a few researchers in Argentina found some seeds in a remote mountain village and started cultivating them again. Now it's a billion-dollar industry. All because someone remembered what the Aztecs knew all along. Number 6. Huitlacoche. The fungus your corn wants to become okay. Hear me out on this one. Because your first reaction is probably going to be disgust. Huitlacoche is a fungus that infects corn. It turns the kernels into swollen, gray-black tumorous growths that look like something from a horror movie. In the United States, farmers call it corn smut and spend millions trying to prevent it. In Mexico, they call it the Mexican truffle and charge premium prices for it. The Aztecs considered huitlacoche a delicacy, a gift from the gods. Modern nutritional analysis suggests the gods knew what they were doing. When the fungus infects corn, it doesn't just destroy the kernel, it transforms it. The infected kernels develop higher levels of lysine, an essential amino acid that regular corn lacks. Compounds that boost immune function. The fungus essentially upgrades your corn's nutritional profile, while creating a flavor that's been described as earthy, smoky, mushroom-like, and utterly unique. High-end restaurants in Mexico City serve huitlacoche quesadillas for $20 a plate. American farmers plow infected corn under and file insurance claims. Growing huitlacoche is delightfully perverse. You're actively trying to infect your corn with a fungus. In Mexico, farmers will sometimes inject corn ears with water during the right stage of development to encourage infection. The fungus, Astilago maydis, is everywhere already. You're just giving it permission. The infection works best when corn is young, about 18 to 20 days after silk appears. You want warm days, cool nights, and a bit of moisture. The fungus moves in, the kernels swell, and within 2 weeks you've got huitlacoche ready to harvest. You pick the infected ears before the fungal spores fully mature and turn into black powder. Here's the beautiful part. You don't have to choose between corn and huitlacoche. If an ear gets infected, harvest it as huitlacoche. Harvest it as corn. You literally can't lose. The Aztecs figured this out. They grew corn and considered huitlacoche the bonus round. The nutritional profile is legitimately impressive. More protein than regular corn. Significantly more lysine, those beta-glucans that support immune function. Antioxidants that fight inflammation. It's almost like the fungus is trying to apologize for being a parasite by making its host more nutritious. American agricultural extension offices will tell you to prevent huitlacoche at all costs. Mexican abuelas will tell you to encourage it and charge your neighbors for the harvest. Trust the abuelas. Number 5. Nopal. A cactus that eats itself. Prickly pear. Cactus grows wild across the American Southwest. Most Americans see it as a decoration or an obstacle. The Aztecs saw it as a refrigerator that grows in the desert and fights diabetes on the side. Nopal, the paddle-shaped cactus pad, shows up everywhere in traditional Mexican cooking. Grilled, boiled, pickled, raw in salads. Green bean-ish flavor and a texture that's somewhere between okra and green pepper. But the Aztecs weren't eating it for the taste. They were eating it because nopal is essentially a pharmacy disguised as a vegetable. The soluble fiber in nopal forms a gel in your digestive system that slows down sugar absorption. Multiple studies have shown that eating nopal with meals significantly reduces blood sugar spikes in people with type 2 diabetes. The Aztecs didn't have blood glucose monitors, but they figured this out empirically. They noticed people who ate nopal regularly had more stable energy and fewer sugar cravings. The pads are also loaded with antioxidants, particularly betalains, the same compounds that make beets red. These fight inflammation, support liver function, and protect cells from oxidative stress. 1 cup of cooked nopal contains more fiber than most fruits, a solid amount of vitamin C, magnesium, and calcium. And nopal cactus is basically impossible to kill. You know those houseplants you murder through neglect? Nopal would laugh at your incompetence and produce more pads just to spite you. The plant thrives in hardiness zones 9 to 11, but can survive light freezes. It needs almost no water once established. Poor soil? Perfect. Rocky, sandy, utterly terrible ground? Even better. The Aztecs grew nopal as living fences around their gardens. The pads are covered in tiny hair-like spines called glochids that irritate skin on contact. Animals learned quickly to avoid nopal barriers. Growing back rapidly after cutting, a single plant could provide food for a family while protecting the rest of their crops from wandering livestock. Propagation is almost comically simple. Cut a pad, let it dry for a week, so the cut end calluses over. Stick it in the ground. Ignore it. It'll root and start producing new pads within a couple months. Instant food supply for future journeys. The fruit, called tuna, is a separate nutritional powerhouse. It's packed with vitamin C, magnesium, and those same betalains. The flavor is sweet, slightly watermelon-like, with a texture that's admittedly full of seeds but worth the effort. Spanish conquistadors took 1 sip of fermented prickly pear juice and decided maybe not everything indigenous needed to be banned. Modern research keeps validating what the Aztecs knew. Studies show nopal reduces cholesterol, supports weight loss, protects against hangover symptoms, probably because of how it affects alcohol metabolism, and may even have anti-cancer properties. Your grocery store sells nopal in the exotic section for $6 a pound. Your neighbor's cactus produces it for free. Number 4. The amaranth's wild cousin. If amaranth is the respectable grain that got banned, horizontal is its rebellious cousin that survived by being too weird for the Spanish to categorize. The plant produces flowering stalks that look like green broccoli had an affair with lamb's quarters. The Aztecs harvested these flower clusters before they fully opened, when they were still tender and packed with nutrients. The Aztec language. It's in the same family Amarantaceae, but it's grown for its flowering shoots rather than seeds. The flavor is complex, slightly bitter, earthy, with a texture that stays firm even after cooking. In central Mexico, the traditional preparation involves stuffing the flower clusters with cheese, coating them in egg batter and frying them. It's called tortitas de horizontal, and it's absolutely worth the effort. But let's talk nutrition, because this is where horizontal stops being just an interesting heirloom crop and starts being a legitimate superfood. The flowering shoots contain more calcium than milk, more iron than spinach, significant amounts of vitamin C, vitamin A, and fiber. The Aztecs considered it essential food for pregnant and nursing women, probably because they noticed it seemed to support lactation and overall health. Modern analysis confirms they were onto something. Horizontal is loaded with phytonutrients that support bone health, immune function, and cellular repair. It's also high in protein for a leafy green, about 3 grams per cup of cooked shoots. Growing horizontal is where things get interesting. The plant is incredibly drought-tolerant, even more so than amaranth. It thrives in marginal soil. It actually prefers alkaline conditions that would make most vegetables sulk and die. The Aztecs grew it in the Chinampas, the famous floating gardens of Lake Texcoco, but they also grew it in the dry, rocky soil of the mountains. The plant reaches 3 to 5 feet tall and produces those flowering stalks continuously if you keep harvesting them. The more you cut, the more it produces. It's like the plant is challenging you to keep up. Growth is fast, 60 to 90 days from seed to harvest, and it self-seeds enthusiastically if you let some stalks go to flower fully. Here's the part that makes horizontal particularly interesting for modern gardeners. The plant is related to quinoa and shares its tolerance for difficult conditions, but it's adapted specifically to the high plateau of central Mexico. That means it handles temperature swings like a champion. Cool nights, no problem. Hot days, bring it on. The only thing it really hates is consistently wet feet, which makes sense for a plant from a region with a pronounced dry season. Commercial agriculture has mostly ignored horizontal because it doesn't fit the model. The flowering shoots are labor-intensive to harvest. They don't store well, And the plant has too much personality. It'll grow where you plant it, but it'll also self-seed wherever it feels like. That's terrible for industrial monoculture. It's fantastic for a home garden where a little chaos is welcome. The Aztecs ate horizontal almost daily during the growing season and dried the flowering shoots for winter storage. They understood something that modern nutritional science is only now confirming. Diverse diets with lots of different plant compounds are better for gut health, immune function, and overall well-being than eating the same 6 vegetables all the time. Your grocery store will never stock horizontal. It's too perishable, too unfamiliar, too difficult to standardize. Harvest those nutrient-dense flowering shoots all summer, and know you're eating something the Aztec nobility considered a delicacy. Number 3. Chaya. The spinach that fights back. Chaya looks harmless. It's a large-leafed perennial shrub that grows enthusiastically in warm climates. The leaves are similar to spinach in flavor, deep green, and loaded with nutrients. The Aztecs and Maya grew it everywhere, using the leaves as a staple green vegetable. Here's the catch. Raw chaya leaves contain toxic compounds called cyanogenic glycosides. Eat them raw and you'll regret it. Your body converts those compounds into cyanide, which is exactly as bad as it sounds. But cook the leaves for 15 to 20 minutes, and those compounds break down completely. What you're left with is one of the most nutritious leafy greens on the planet, particularly in the Yucatan Peninsula. Modern nutritional analysis shows why they bothered. 1 cup of cooked chaya leaves contains more calcium than a cup of milk, more iron than spinach, huge amounts of vitamin A, more than carrots, significant vitamin C, potassium, and fiber. It's also high in protein for a leafy green, about 6 grams per cup cooked. The Maya called it the longevity plant and fed it to elderly family members to maintain their health and vitality. Research from Mexico has shown that regular chaya consumption helps regulate blood sugar, reduce cholesterol, and support kidney function. The leaves contain compounds that seem to have anti-inflammatory and antioxidant effects. The Maya weren't wrong about the longevity thing. Growing chaya is almost absurdly easy in the right climate. The plant is a perennial shrub that can reach 20 feet tall if you let it, though most people keep it pruned to 6 feet for easier harvest. It thrives in hardiness zones 9 to 11 and needs essentially no care once established. Drought? It'll sulk but survive. Or soil? Perfect. Pests? They mostly avoid it, probably because of those cyanogenic glycosides in the leaves. Propagation is simple. Cut a woody stem about 12 inches long. Stick it in moist soil. It'll root within weeks. The Aztecs and Maya spread chaya across Mesoamerica by carrying cuttings and planting them at settlements. The plant became so common that archaeologists use it as a marker for ancient Maya habitation. If you find wild chaya in the jungle, there was probably a village there 1,000 years ago. The leaves can be harvested continuously. Just don't take more than 30% of the plant's leaves at once, or you'll stress it. New leaves grow back quickly, providing a constant supply of greens year-round in warm climates. The Maya would harvest leaves every week, cooking them into soups, stews, and side dishes. One warning: don't use aluminum pots when cooking chaya. The compounds in the leaves react with aluminum and can turn the whole thing toxic again. Use stainless steel, glass, or ceramic. The Maya used clay pots. They didn't have to worry about aluminum. Chaya is basically a set-it-and-forget-it perennial green that produces more nutrition than anything else in your garden. For gardeners in cooler climates, it's frustratingly tropical and won't survive frost. But you can grow it in a large container, bring it inside for winter, and pretend you have a greenhouse. The plant tolerates container growing well. Number 2. Tepary beans. The bean that laughs at drought. The American Southwest is not good bean growing territory. It's hot. It's dry. The soil is often poor and alkaline. Modern agriculture solves this with irrigation, fertilizer, and hoping for the best. The Aztecs and earlier indigenous peoples of the region domesticated a bean that just doesn't care about any of those problems. Tepary beans are the honey badgers of the legume world. They thrive in conditions that would kill kidney beans. They produce abundant crops with almost no water. They actually prefer poor soil, and they're more nutritious than every other bean in your pantry. Tepary beans are small, about the size of a lentil, and come in various colors including white, tan, brown, and black. They cook faster than regular beans, have a nutty, earthy flavor, and maintain their shape even after long cooking. But the real story is their nutritional density. Tepary beans have more protein than pinto beans, more fiber, lower glycemic index, meaning they cause less blood sugar spike. They're also extraordinarily high in soluble fiber, which feeds beneficial gut bacteria and supports digestive health. For people with diabetes, tepary beans are a near-perfect food. They provide sustained energy without spiking blood sugar, and they help improve insulin sensitivity over time. Recent research has shown that tepary beans contain compounds that may help prevent and manage type 2 diabetes. The indigenous peoples of the Southwest, including the Odom people who have grown tepary beans for thousands of years, have traditionally low rates of diabetes when eating their ancestral diet. When they switch to modern American diets, diabetes rates skyrocket. Researchers are now studying tepary beans as a potential intervention. Growing tepary beans is where they really shine. These plants evolved in the Sonoran Desert, one of the harshest environments in North America. They're adapted to extreme heat, scarce rainfall, and poor soil. In traditional cultivation, tepary beans are planted with the summer monsoons and grown with no supplemental irrigation. They complete their entire life cycle, from seed to harvest, on maybe 12 inches of rainfall. The plants stay small, rarely exceeding 18 inches tall, and have small leaves that reduce water loss. They flower quickly and set pods even in scorching heat that would cause other beans to drop their flowers. The whole growing season is 60 to 90 days, allowing them to complete growth before the dry season intensifies. For modern gardeners, this means tepary beans are perfect for low-water landscapes, hot climates, and situations where you want a productive crop without constant attention. They don't need fertilizer. They fix their own nitrogen like all legumes, incorporating them into their food systems. They recognized that different beans thrived in different environments, and tepary beans were the champions of arid lands. They grew regular beans. In the dry northern territories, they grew tepary beans. They're hard to find, considered niche, not standardized enough for mass production. But you can order seeds online from seed companies specializing in indigenous crops. Plant them in late spring in well-drained soil. Water them until they germinate. Then mostly ignore them. They'll produce pounds of beans with minimal intervention. Number 1. Jicama. The turnip that tastes like an apple jicama doesn't look like much. It's a brown, rough-skinned tuber that could easily be mistaken for a turnip if turnips got that large. But cut into a jicama, and you'll find crisp white flesh that's sweet, juicy, and utterly unlike any other root vegetable. The sweetness of a pear, and a neutral flavor that makes it incredibly versatile. The Aztecs grew jicama extensively, eating it raw with lime and chili powder, a combination that's still popular in Mexico today. But they also cooked it, fermented it, and used it as a staple source of carbohydrates that stored well and provided sustained energy. Nutritionally, jicama is fascinating. It's high in fiber, about 6 grams per cup. It's packed with vitamin C. 1 cup provides 40% of your daily requirement. It contains inulin, a type of prebiotic fiber that feeds beneficial gut bacteria and supports digestive health. And despite being sweet, jicama has a low glycemic index. It won't spike your blood sugar the way potatoes or other starchy vegetables do. The inulin content is particularly interesting. This type of fiber doesn't get digested in your small intestine. Instead, it travels to your colon where gut bacteria ferment it, and may even help with weight management. The Aztecs didn't know about gut bacteria, but they noticed that people who ate jicama regularly had fewer digestive problems. Jicama is also impressively low in calories for something that tastes sweet and satisfies like a starch. 1 cup of sliced jicama has only 49 calories. Compare that to a cup of potato at 130 calories. You can eat jicama until you're stuffed and barely make a dent in your caloric intake for the day. Growing jicama is where things get interesting and slightly complicated. The plant is a vigorous vine in the legume family that needs a long, warm growing season. We're talking 150 to 180 days of frost-free weather. The Aztecs grew it in central and southern Mexico where the climate cooperates. For gardeners in temperate zones, jicama is challenging but not impossible. The vine is beautiful, producing purple flowers that look like sweet pea blossoms. But here's the critical part. The flowers and pods are toxic. The seeds are toxic. The leaves are mildly toxic. Only the tuber is edible. The Aztecs knew this. They pinched off the flowers to direct the plant's energy into tuber production. And they warned children to never eat the beans. The plant fixes nitrogen like other legumes, actually improving your soil while it grows. It's drought-tolerant once established. And it produces tubers that can weigh 5 to 6 pounds each, sometimes larger. A few plants can provide a serious amount of food. In warm climates, jicama is a set-it-and-forget-it crop. Water regularly until established, then back off. The vine sprawls across the ground or climbs if you give it support. Harvest after the first light frost kills back the vine, or after 150 days, whichever comes first. The tubers store for months in cool, dry conditions. In cooler climates, determined gardeners start jicama indoors 6 to 8 weeks before the last frost, transplant into the warmest spot in the garden, and pray for a long growing season. It's a gamble, but the payoff is literally bushels of crisp, sweet tubers that store all winter. The Aztecs understood that jicama was something special. It provided reliable calories in a package that didn't spike blood sugar. It stored well without processing. It could be eaten raw or cooked. And it grew with minimal input in areas with decent rainfall and warm temperatures. Modern nutritional science has validated everything the Aztecs knew. Jicama is a legitimate superfood that supports gut health, blood sugar management, and provides nutrients without excess calories. It's showing up in fancy restaurants, trendy health food stores, and nutrition blogs. Probably with lime and chili, wondering why anyone would bother with regular turnips. So there you have it. 8 crops the Aztecs mastered, most of which your grocery store doesn't carry, and all of which are more nutritious than the sad, industrially produced vegetables that dominate modern agriculture. The Aztecs built an empire feeding millions of people in a challenging environment. They did it with crops that thrived under difficult conditions and provided superior nutrition. We replaced their food system with one that requires constant inputs of water, fertilizer, and pesticides to produce food that's nutritionally inferior and environmentally destructive. Smart trade. The good news? You can grow these crops. Most are available as seeds from specialized suppliers. They'll thrive in your garden with less care than you give your tomatoes. And you'll be eating food that sustained empires while your neighbor struggles to keep their hybrid tomatoes alive. The Aztecs figured out sustainable, nutritious agriculture 600 years ago. Maybe it's time we paid attention.